Hello, everybody. This may be the first time that I don't really know where to start and how to share my worries with you. There are Russian tanks at the Ucranian border, and that is more or less on my doorstep. And for the first time in years, endless years, I am afraid. And you know, I'm not a person to be afraid easily, certainly not. Nor am I a naturally anxious person, not at all. Maybe I should start this very serious subject with a joke. You know, my Turkish teacher thinks life is so difficult that he prefers my funny videos more than the serious ones. Çok üzgünüm oğlum. I'm really sorry. But again and again, when preparing, I think, should I follow his advice and come up with something funny? So yes, let's start this very difficult subject with a joke. I was saying that I'm not naturally an anxious person. On the contrary, I tell my friends that when God distributed characteristics to human beings, and when it came to his distributing fear, fortunately, I had just gone to the loo. And when I returned from the toilet, there was no fear left. And that seems to be true to some extent. It's the more worrying for me that now I really am afraid. There's a war impending. Only say a few weeks ago, if you had said there is a war impending on your doorstep, I would have laughed at you. I would have thought you have fallen to one of those conspiracy theories. It's beyond me to understand how anyone, anywhere, whatever nationality, whatever part of the world they live in, can play with this fire, can make it possible. I don't want to say probable, possible that there may be a war. Don't they know what a war is? These days, you don't even have an excuse. We've all seen photos, pictures in the internet, on television from, say, Syria. You can take any other war. We all know what it means. So how is it possible that anyone plays at war? Now, there was something that was important to me. Yes, there you go. A friend of mine comes back to me. A friend of mine said to me only very recently, according to her, every human being, no matter where, wants a nice family, a nice home, and a nice job. Period. No more. They do not want to go into a war with whomever, and most certainly not the Russians, who know more about war than many. They have had their sons and daughters being killed in Afghanistan, in Chechnya, not so very long ago. So how are you going to convince your young men, and of course also your young women, to be ready to be killed? For what? Propaganda. No war functions without propaganda. You have to convince your young people of some terrible atrocities, some terrible things that the enemy is planning for you. Lies. You absolutely have to tell your own young people lies about the enemy. Otherwise, why would they put their own lives at jeopardy? And who is it that sends the young people there? The advanced middle-aged, if not the old. And they're not the ones who are going to be killed. They sit in their oversized offices, at their oversized desks. Interestingly, a friend of mine, his idea was not this whatever president sitting in this oversized office. His idea was that the president sits in an oversized palace. Interestingly, that friend is a Turk, so I suppose that's why his picture, the picture he has in his mind, is the oversized palace. But we, ordinary people, we don't want this, do we? I'm a child of the 60s. And the 60s was not only the decade of flower power and of a liberated sexuality, even if that was great fun. It was also the decade of protest against wars. That was something completely new. In the USA, tens of thousands of young people, men and women, went onto the streets and demonstrated against Vietnam. And, even more astounding, it was not only that they didn't want to be killed themselves, thousands and thousands of kilometers away from home, they also thought they didn't want to do that to the Vietnamese either. They didn't want to kill the enemy either. So, this is really serious. Let me tell you the story of my family. Not because it's special, no, because it is so ordinary. Second World War. My mother, widowed, very young, no children. Her husband had 2 more brothers. Of these 3 brothers, 2 were killed. 1 returned home. Her sister, my mother's sister, also widowed, this time with 2 very little girls left. The girls never ever knew their father. That father, one of 5 boys. 3 never returned. 1 with only 1 leg. My father was never ever able throughout his life to handwrite because a bullet had totally shredded the muscles of his right arm. My stepfather came home after 6 years as a prisoner of war in Russia. He had not yet reached the 30th year of his life when he came home, with not 1 single tooth of his own in his mouth. Till the end of his long life, he woke regularly, screaming from nightmares. That is the story of my family, an ordinary story. Millions and millions of people in Europe in those days had similar stories. Don't let them do that to you. Don't believe what they're telling you. Always think about it. It doesn't work without lies. It can't work without lies. Only if they make you believe these terrible things about the enemy will you be ready to sacrifice your own young life. Don't do it. In the 60s, there was a saying, imagine there was a war and nobody went. So please take action. I know you are ready and you're able to do it. You do it for the environment and for the planet, and you're doing well, and I'm very proud of you. And now don't let them sacrifice your lives. It's your lives. Whatever you can do against it, say it. You got to take to action now. Please. Bye.